I think what we are now arriving at, like you said, do not confuse the demo with the install. And I'm thinking also do not confuse the implementation with adoption. You can implement the tool, be accepted by a small group of people who are probably very curious, but for the tool to be adopted at company wide and probably is a very different story. So I'm curious, Michael, through your experience being a change and transformation leader, consultant for 25 years, I can imagine your process will probably work for AI adoption well. Could you give me a sense or maybe break down how you approach this type of projects?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'm going to lean, I try and lean on people smarter than me. And so I'm going to lean on the work of my good friend Bob Mesta from the Rewired Group. Bob did founding work with Clay Christensen on jobs to be done theory. And we've talked about this before in other interviews and other, conversations that we've done as part of my work. The question is not what is the technology and what does it do? The question is, what do you need? And then how is that technology helping? What job is the technology doing? And so one of the things I think, and you alluded to at the beginning, we make the mistake of focusing on the technology, thinking everything else will follow. What we have to actually focus on is, what in the hell are we trying to do strategically? Where are we trying to go? Now, why do we think this technology in particular can help us? Is it cost efficient? Does it give us as much help? When will it give us the help? Do we have to invest in it at a loss and learn it before it's going to be useful? It's looking at it really eyes wide open and with curiosity as to what it can do, but not letting the technology dictate, letting the technology be an augmentation. It's one of the things I love when we talk about augmented reality. There's a lot of talk about virtual reality. I love augmented reality, and I think that right now we're living in an age of augmented reality, reality augmented by technology. But the reality is what matters, not the technology. And so we have to be thinking about what are we trying to accomplish. So I'm working with an organization and they've got something they're wanting to do with artificial intelligence. First of all, the question is, why? Why? Well, how much will it really help? What's the value? What's the value now? What's the value over time? What do we think it's going to be? Is this because others are doing it? Is this going to be a race to the bottom where we all pay consulting firms a huge amount for this technology and we are able to much more expensively replicate what we were doing before? It takes me back to the story. One of my graduate professors, Tom Cummings, told a great story about he was way back when, might have been the early 80s or something, in the 70s, I don't know, when the movement around self-managed work teams was all the rage. And he got called into an organization and they said, we want to put in self-managed work teams. Great. And he looks at what they did. What did they did? They had a factory that was basically all manual and they made sutures like for surgeries. And what they would do is they had somebody who literally was threading the needle, passing it off, and somebody who was winding the string up and folding it over, and someone who was putting it in a packet that would be sealed and go through an autoclave to be sterilized. And he looked at it and he said, this is basically 3 manual activities. You could automate this, but self-managed work teams make no sense. They said, that's what we want. Why? Because our CEO read an article about it on an airplane, and that's what he wants. So they said, okay, and they went out and they hired all these people and they interviewed people and they, talked to the teams and they trained them and they said, you're going to be making your own decisions. You're going to be deciding what your productivity is. You're going to manage it all. And they turned them loose and productivity went in the toilet. And they didn't know what to do. And people were spending all these times having conversations about things that had been solved way before, but now they were told to have a conversation about it. So they couldn't figure out what to do. And they went and they put an ad in the paper, said, do you want a job? Show up here. And people came in and they had a warehouse and they had 3 stations. One person was a person putting the needles on, one was doing the string, one was packing the envelopes. And they had people look at each of them do those tasks for a minute, and they look them in the eyes and say, could you see yourself doing this 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for the rest of your life? And if they blinked or hesitated, they were out the door. And those who said, sure, they hired them. And so they created a skunk works in the back to do the work that the new teams actually couldn't do. Why do I tell you that long, silly story? I tell you because AI, like any other technology, like these self-managed work team processes, is simply a technology that has a time and a place, but it's not every time and it's not every place. And so we need to start with, what are we doing? Why are we here to do this? Are we going to accomplish it? And then how is this going to help now and in the future? And based upon that, what will our decisions be about the use and adoption of that technology? Then you maybe want to get ahead of yourself. Then you may want to spend more money than you need to do it initially, because it's going to help you in the long run. I don't know what the circumstances may be, but with my clients, I tell them, think through the reality first before you worried about the augmented or technologically supported part of it.